but my wife said something very important to me a couple years ago, and she goes, "You know, you're never going to get invited into a well-run company because they don't need the help then." And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we have an awesome guest, Tom Larkin, and he's going to share us a little bit about his story and his company.
Yeah, Thomas runs a consulting firm called Soláthair, and he's going to tell us a little bit about how he got started, and then how he manages that business with his wife, and how he got started there, and then running that business with his wife, kind of similar to what Jen and I do with our trucking company. So, welcome to the show, Thomas.
Hey there.
Oh, thank you. It's great to meet you, and it's kind of great to be here and talk about being in business with my wife. So,
So, Tom, can you tell us a little bit about your company and how you got started, and kind of
sure.
give us a little history of where you started and where you are now?
Sure. Soláthair we're a boutique consulting firm in operations. So we help people do supply chain procurement, kind of the typical management consulting firm you'd see from one of the big four, but a little bit more geared towards mid-sized businesses. And I do a lot of work and executive coaching with small businesses, people in the maybe $20 million and smaller, to help them because they don't get a lot of support. I've been doing this iteration for about 13 years with my wife. She's kind of my CFO and my chairman of the board, and I'm the one going off and doing a lot of the deliveries. But she's keeping me more grounded as to how the business is supposed to be run. So we share the time and the expertise on how to get a business running well. It wasn't always that way. So I started in consulting. Wow. I hate to actually put the number out there because it's really, really big, but about 26 years ago. And I started with like a Price Waterhouse Coopers and the big five type of firms and everything that was out there. And I through a couple different iterations, and I jumped out of the big companies to be into a boutique. And in the early 2000s, there was some turmoil, a recession going on in the 2002, 2003 range, and especially hit Europe, which is the firm I was with was based out of Europe. So when the company imploded, I took my clients and I started my own business. But I didn't start it with my wife because we had spent me traveling as a consultant. I went off on a plane. She went and did what she had to do. We were living, I won't call it separate lives, but I had my job, she had hers. And when it came down to me starting the firm, she was like, "Well, this isn't going to change. It's just going to put another name on it. You're off on your own."
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I
just
had
getting
someone
into
else that I was working with, and I found out fairly quickly, I'd say within the first year to 2 years of that iteration, that you can't be married to two people. Having a separate second partner just doesn't work.
yeah.
That business just it folded fairly quickly. Luckily, we met the client engagements. We did everything that we needed to do, but I realized that if I was going to ever do this again, I would never do it with an outside partner.
What's one of the toughest parts of managing with a partner? Because we've had some different ventures approached us over the years where it's like, hey, we should partner together, but I'm always very leery of it just because molding, learning that person, do I really completely trust them? So what was it that you found that really made it tough, kind of with your personality and everything, to run a business with a partner? It's not your wife.
Trust is the biggest part. Okay, so starting with that, let's build off that for a second. If you don't trust them, you should never get into business with them. And just the fact that you have to set up an agreement to protect yourself is a big issue. Okay, so you're effectively getting married, but married in business, not married at home. That being an issue causes some problems. Another issue is you both have different divergent ideas of where the company should go. I was focused on the type of delivery aspects in my area. They were focused on theirs. We thought that since we had worked together a lot and they were synergistic, we could take this going forward. But what they thought their commitment on a time and energy was not mine. Okay. And I was willing to drop in 80 hours a week. They were looking at, oh, I could do this part time.
Like, that's
Yeah.
not going to get us where we want to go.
Oh yeah, that's
Exactly.
a lot of conflicts there. Yeah.
So, So you have to be meshed, and
Yeah.
that's the biggest issue, I would say. Another aspect of working with an outside partner to it is they're going to make investments, whether it be time or whether it be money, and now is an equal partnership. And then who has the final say? So if you're putting in extra time, but there has been no revenue, but you're putting in more time, are you the one that's really in charge? And then you get into this argument.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're kind of working for them at that point, or working for, yeah, it's more of a job than it is an investment or a business when you're doing stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I would think that if I were to try and say I'd go with another partner somewhere, it would have to be something that is about a lot more structured and a lot more, it becomes a job. And that's fine. I don't have a problem working with people. And, my clients and I sign contracts all the time as this is my piece of work and this is your piece of work. But we know that there's an end in sight. There's a light at the end of that tunnel at some point. And I've had clients that last multi years, but there's a separation of, if you will, church and state. Not when you are in business with that person, and your revenue is hinging on their success as much as their revenue is hinging on yours.
Okay.
So tell us
So,
a little bit about how you took the step from that company to starting the company you're with now.
okay. Well, I had left that when that company was going down. I said, all right, look, I have to get away from this individual. And luckily, a friend of mine, and through networking and everything else, I left and went back to industry for a couple years.
Okay.
And and I went into banking and was helping them there. When that was ending, and I came out, I was burned out. I was traveling all over the world, and I came back to, okay, it's time for me to take a step back. And a friend asked me to help write a book. I was like, great. And I started up the new firm, and it was funny because at this point in time, my wife and I said, okay, if you're going to do this, you have to be involved. And she's like, yeah, okay, I get it, because it's about the investment of our money, and it's about the investment of the time. And I said, I can't do all of it on my own. I can't go out to the clients and deliver the solutions and write the contracts and follow the AP process and the AR process and get all this stuff done. So we divided up the work a bit. But what was really funny was coming up with just the company name. When
Yeah.
we did, you go out and you try and find a domain name. You have trucks. When you thought about it, it's like, how do I spell it? What is it going to be? When people hear it, they need to know it means something. So I said, okay, well, I do supply chain, I do procurement, I look through every single website and every Google, every iteration in Latin and Spanish and Italian and French, all the Romance languages that I knew, saying what's out there. And everyone was taken. I thought,
Yeah.
like, oh, come on, seriously. And my wife just turns to me, and we're sitting next to each other in the office. She just turns around and she goes, you do know you're Irish, right? And I just was like, oh, yeah, look it up. Oh, there we go. That's how the company name came about. But it
Okay.
was just that personality banter that you've had just because you got married helps to
Yeah.
make the business piece work so much better.
Yeah.
I think that's what's good about us too, is it's kind of like you're that other side, kind of not, I don't want to say a blind side, but it's like you have that feedback that's kind of the other side of that conversation that we might be
Yeah.
missing with someone else because you know them so well. And
Yeah. Or you probably rein in some of my ideas that I might go running with that probably shouldn't be running with, or things like that too. So having that balance
Oh,
is
yes.
always good.
Yeah, I've made mistakes, and she's been the first person to point them out, um, and vice versa. But it's because you're so integrated and you're able to think through it. Um, we always talk about when you start dating someone, you always remember that you're finishing each other's sentences. Well, it works well when you're in business that you're able to think on the same lines. But it's also good, and I use the expression that we're the two sides of the same coin. We're opposite, but we're always going to be together.
Yeah.
And
I
what's
like
good
that.
is both sides look in a different direction. So we're
Wow,
able to look at the same thing in a different way and then bring it back together.
Yeah.
that's really sweet. I really like that
Yeah.
analogy.
What was your wife's background when she came in? Was you just like, hey, you grabbed her and we're starting this business together? Or did she kind of have that entrepreneurial drive too, or was she doing something similar? Or what brought that together?
Well, a lot of it was we've known, like I said, we've known each other. We've been together for 37 years when we met in college. And we've been married 32. So really, the consulting piece, she was off doing some bookkeeping, accounting type of work, and also risk management. So she really got heavily involved in contract management with her businesses that she was in. So as this was going on and being iterative, she had left some of the corporate world to take care of her ailing mother at the time. Okay. So while she was out and before she went back into the industry, after we we lost my mother-in-law, I looked at her and I said, why don't you help us? Why don't we do this together when this iteration came about? And because she knows contracts and she knows the business side of it, and she can run the business side. So she is really the yin to the yang, and really counterpoints to me because while I help people with multi-million dollar budgets and all this type of stuff, you know, getting down into the nitty gritty of the accounts payables and the accounting processes, that was her forte, never, not always mine. I look at the big stuff. She gets the rest of it, and it's a good balance of our work.
Sounds familiar.
There's a lot of ways that sounds familiar to us because Jen does a lot of the back office bookkeeping. I'm probably the last one you want to manage your money, manage everything with that. So she's really good with that. But then also we kind of, Jen lost her mother probably about probably 4 or 5 months before we started the business, and that was a bit of a kind of a moment for us to push us forward. Like, hey, if we don't do it now, we're just going to keep waiting. So that was one of those moments where like, hey, let's do this. So because I'd been kicking the idea around for a while, and I was getting restless in my job, didn't really like it, and didn't want to keep doing that. So that was one of the catalysts that kind of moved us forward. So it's very cool to hear that very similar story on your side.
We just felt like your life won't change unless you try something new and take a step in a different direction. So, you kind of take one step, like kind of like you're looking at company names and checking the web domains, and things like that. It's like one thing just leads into another, but it sounds like you've built up quite a large enterprise.
Yeah, I would say that I would say COVID also impacted, but it was all that's a big issue. COVID impacted the consulting era a lot in that I actually lost clients that I was ready to close on March 15th of 2020. And having my wife there and as a partner in all this, it impacted our lives, but we were still able to keep some business, but not as much as we were anticipating. But I had somebody I could turn to, and we were going through it together. So I would love to say that I'm going to retire early because it's a lucrative business. It's a day-to-day grind, just like every other company that's out there. But being able to share and now my wife actually understands the client side of it because when I was on the road and I'd be like, oh well, Joe did this and Mary did that type of stuff, and you're just basically coming in from a business and complaining about work. But now she's actually seeing, oh, this is what happens. This is why, you get invited in. This is why consultants are needed. And if it wasn't for her, I probably would have lost my mind because, and I don't mean this disparagingly to my clients because they're all trying very hard. But my wife said something very important to me a couple years ago, and she goes, you're never going to get invited into a well-run company because they don't need the help then. And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah.
That's a very good point. And yeah, you wouldn't necessarily think about that. So.
We kind of have to, it's the same thing with drivers. You have to make sure you're hiring a driver who is not looking for a job because he just messed up something down.
Yeah.
The ideal person that you want is not looking for a job,
Right. The person that you want is always, and I look for consultants the same, that the person that I want is someone who is wanting to give 110% because it's just who they are. And that work ethic is hard to find sometimes, but you know, that's another piece, is being able to bounce off is the person that we're talking to. Um, do they meet kind of I won't say our values, because I don't need somebody like me, but I need someone who's going to complement the work that we give.
And that's kind of like working from home now with COVID. You need someone you can trust because everyone's not showing up at the office at a certain time. You need to make sure when someone says they're going to work 40 hours a week from home, they're
Mhm.
really going to work, you know.
Yeah, I've heard so many people say it's so tough. The having to set up the office and eliminate the distractions. I've worked from home probably since I started my working career, but some people has had trouble with that. So, did you see a
Yeah.
lot of that with your industry, or?
Oh, absolutely. And yes, I've always joked that as long as I had a laptop and a phone, I had an office because that was what I had to do as a consultant when I first started. So I've been doing remote work since the mid 90s, but a lot of other people are just not used to it. They want the four walls around them and the interaction and the beer pong after work or whatever it might be with the people they're working with. And I've had a lot of issues around getting people to work. And I would say I took learnings from the bookkeeping side of the business that my wife brought in was clear measurable deliverables on them to make sure that we're getting. I'm not trying to be an ogre and have people working 90-hour weeks or something like this, but I want to say if they're going to do they're going to tell me it's 40, then I expect this amount of work in 40 hours. And it was kind of that, how do we measure it? How do we hold them accountable to it? Um, but at the same point in time, how do we let them live their lives? And in fact, one of the biggest reasons we had problems with COVID was the people didn't want to travel anymore. As a consultant, I've been on every single continent except Antarctica. Um, so I I live on a plane, and I've gotten to the point where I could just before the door closes, I'm asleep, ready to be able to. Because to quote the Jason Bourne movie, "Sleep is a weapon." You just have to fall asleep and get whenever you can. Now nobody ever wanted to get on a plane anymore. So I can't, like your truckers need to be going from site to site. Well, I can't change a production facility sitting in New Jersey and they're in Peoria. It doesn't work that way. So,
Yeah, so have you started to see, COVID changed everything, and then now, with trucking, we're starting to see a kind of a normalization back to where it was, or the kind of trends you're starting to see trends kind of come back to where they were in, say, 2019. Are you starting to see things get back to what they were before, or have things completely changed and you've got a different set of circumstances or different set of norms now post COVID?
no, I would say I am seeing a trend back to, we'll call it normality. But there is a new normal, and I hate to use that expression that we had to live through, but um, people are getting back into the facilities. They're realizing they need to do the work. But there are elements, clients, I'm going to say, are more comfortable with, I don't need you on site every single day. So what I would always was arguing with them in the early 2000s, in that my consultants can go home on Thursday nights and we'll have conference calls on Fridays. And they're like, no, no, I'm paying you. You have to be here. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be burning them out. They're going to leave. Then we're both in trouble.
And nobody does anything to help.
Right. Now they're like, oh, we get it because none of my people are in on Fridays. They're only working 3 days a week. From so in the office, or that some clients haven't even brought people back fully to the office. So
Okay.
we have a different perspective on some of it because I don't always do just shop floor work. We do a lot of procurement work where it's just people working on computers, so you can do more virtual work. And I do a
Okay.
lot of executive coaching with businesses like yours, where the work is being done by the individuals in the company. So we can do a lot more zooming, and clients are more comfortable with it. But now I am finding that I have consultants that are willing to get on a plane, willing to fly to Peoria or Buffalo in the winter and things like this that are necessary.
Real glamorous destinations that you always end up in, right?
Yeah, trust me. I go to Buffalo in the winter and Houston in the summer, and it's or Baton Rouge in the middle of hurricane season. It's just what has to happen. So
Yeah, we had company meetings in person for years, and then when COVID hit, we went to Zoom like everybody else.
Yeah.
And with drivers meet on the road or wherever their routes take them, it was kind of hard to get everybody together anyway. So now we pretty much just do it with Zoom, but that way more people can attend. We can record it. We can send it out after for people that maybe were driving at the time. So I think the world has changed a lot, and I think companies are adapting to the new environment, like you said.
yeah, I don't think we'll ever really get a full 4-day work week like that I keep seeing in the news, just because the world actually turns and it takes 7 days to get through a week. So trucking, I have family members that are in the truck have been in the trucking business over the years, and they were doing long hauls over weekends. So the roads don't close up on Saturday and Sunday. So
And the customer, our main customer now, they don't stop. Our business is literally 24/7. There's some days that are lighter than others, but everything's moving. So stuff's always got to move. When you order on Friday and expect it by Monday, it's gotta move somewhere between on those weekend days. So
yeah,
that's
and I work with a lot of production facilities that are 24/7 facilities where they're running weekends and second and third shifts, and I've got to be available to help them. Also, their companies or their plants are on multiple continents. So if I have to have a 9 p.m. conference call with Singapore, that's what I
Yeah.
have to do,
yeah.
What time is that here?
That's 9 a.m. Well, actually, no, right now it'll be, if it's 9 p.m. for our time, it'll be 8 a.m. their time, I think, because that's
Okay.
13-hour differences, or the other way,
Okay.
10 hours. I don't know. The computer tells me when I have to show up. I don't remember
I'm glad
anymore.
the Zoom meeting it tells you your zip code. I have to be careful though when I'm creating a calendar event when I'm out of the time zone, because when
Yes.
I get back, it's a different time zone and the time zone.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah, we had that. I wanted to go back to kind of working with your wife back at the start of the business. What did you learn, or what did you guys learn to work on, and what challenges did you face as a married couple in business? Starting out working together, and especially, I'd imagine it's also if you came off the road for a little bit to start the business, and you haven't been home a lot, and you're used to interacting on the phone, and so can you tell us a little bit about that transition and how you guys progressed as a couple and business partners?
Sure. Let me start with the first question of what did we learn and what did we start working on. Well, we separated what needs to be done from home, what is the back office, what is the client engagement, what she was willing to deal with, and what I could help with. So that break separation of what it was a little bit of, okay, am I in charge of marketing or are you in charge of marketing, and how are we going to get investments in sales? And that, I'd say, where we ran into our first conflict, which was, do we need, do you spend money to make money? Okay, because now the money that I'm spending is our money, not not some other company's money where there's an expense account and everything else that can go off of it. So that was a big piece. So what is the investment that we're going to do, and how do we do it? And inevitably you're going to find that once in a while you might make a mistake. You trust the wrong supplier, or you you don't get the value that you anticipated from it. So it was to really focus in better and make a better decision collectively, as to what was happening. The working from home piece, and working now in an office where she is literally to my left, when I'm working at home. I'm actually on a client right now, a client site. So, but when our desks are right next to each other, she's not really used to it. So the first couple, I would even say, months, it was, oh, I hear a noise. Oh, that's him. Because she's just not used to seeing me in the office all the time, and it's like we now she I always had my Friday work from home, and that was okay. So Friday he's taking over the office, and she'd leave me alone before we started working together. But now she couldn't. Now she had to get stuff done, and and she says, wait a second, how do we get through this? It was kind of comical, a little bit over, the like a like a Jim Carrey movie with people bumping into each other and trying to get things done. Um, I would
Relate
say
to
it took
that
us a
word.
little, yeah, it took us a little bit, but we worked it out. We worked it out. And did I answer all your questions?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, we can relate to that. We had a townhouse when we started the business, and the room we set up as our office was literally like a 10 by 10 or 11 by 11 room. And we had our desks in there. We're taking phone calls. And I'm like, can you be quiet? She's like, no, can you be quiet? Can we do this? So, I always had a lot of things I'd have to go find. I'd find good places to work when I'm out. In
Yeah,
the
I'm
beginning
glad.
of the I did a lot of stuff on my own. So I'd find a place to go work that on an afternoon or something like that. So,
Yeah, I'm glad that we have a better Wi-Fi connection in the house now, so I can literally pick up the laptop, go off, and have another Zoom call while she's having one. So we're not conflicting against it all. But
yeah.
Well, I think we might be getting close to time. Could you give us some last advice or something that you would encourage people thinking of starting a business?
if you're going to start a business, the best thing is take some time and I'll give you the 5 minute consulting piece. Every client I do this with. So anyone wants to reach out to me, feel free. But I walk them through what I call kind of it's the three C's: clarity, consensus, and communications. And what you do is you start off with 6 steps. The first one is understand why you want to be in business and what do you value. Okay, and I don't care if you're on the left side of the spectrum, the right side of the spectrum, or dead in the middle. You have values, things that you care about. Be clear with each other about what those are, just like getting into marriage. Why do you want to get there and what do you want to do? And then you have 2 more really important steps. And every big business talks about writing a vision statement and a mission statement. Okay. So write them. What is the vision of your company? Where do you want to be 5 years plus from now? Your mission statement is where do I want to be going towards that 5 years, 3 years from now? Okay. And I use the analogy I want to walk, I want to get from New York City to LA, but I want to get there in a certain amount of time. So I can either walk, take trains, take cars, take planes. However you get there, those are your measurables that are going to get you there. So when you write your vision and you write your mission, put clear definitions as to what it means that you're going to get there. And then the next 2 steps are you take that vision and that mission and you write your goals. And that's a 1 year task. What am I going to do this year? And then drive past that to your objectives. How do I do that? Now I get into the steps. And those 6 pieces together run a business. Any business, I don't care how big it is. I tell all my clients, whether they're multi-billion-dollar clients or $1 million and less clients, okay, start this way. And if you do it together, just like when you got married, okay, and you said, I want to have a family or I want to buy a house or I don't want to live with my parents, whatever you said, okay, all those things together still follow the same plan. I know why I'm doing it. I know I'm going to measure my success by how I did it. And I have the tasks that I'm going to do. They're all drive to make those things successful.
Awesome.
Excellent. That was great advice, Tom. Thank you.
Happy to. It was wonderful talking to you. This has been a lot of fun. I'm glad to see that you guys are growing your business together because it's the best way to move forward together as a couple too.
Yes, thank you.
That it hasn't been easy, but that's kind of why we're doing the show, to show that you can, take a step in faith, start a business, work through it. There definitely will be hard times, but you just have to kind of keep persevering.
That's right. Well, again, thank you, Tom, for being on the show. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the Married in Business podcast. We look forward to seeing you again with the next episode. If you liked what you heard today, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And everyone, thank you for listening.
Have a great day.